Saying that the Peter Jackson-directed New Line Cinema Lord of the Rings films are the most popular adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien's work is like saying oxygen is the most popular gas for humans to breathe. But there's plenty of us whose first or favorite interactions with the world of Middle-earth wasn't the Peter Jackson films. I myself am one. Maybe your first experience was with the books, or different films like the odd but awesome Rankin Bass films from the late 70s, or even the Soviet teleplay Hraniteli, and if that's the case, I'm kinda jealous of you. There's probably some of you out there whose first interactions to the universe was video games, licensed or otherwise.
Roger, people on social media are calling this the Battle of Home Depot.
But regardless, many of us have a different idea of what Middle-earth should look like than the extremely early 2000s, slightly edgy and Bloom Effect heavy world that Peter Jackson gave us. What if you had a vision of a version of Lord of the Rings where Frodo spent a lot of time hitting giant spiders with sticks, where, as Tolkien intended, you could see the back of Frodo's eyeballs when he wore the ring?
What the hell is even that?
Where you had a big stick you could hit spiders with, where Tom Bombadil is the most menacing character in the story, where spiders attacked you and you were allowed to hit them with sticks, where the constant threat of giant spiders could be contained as God intended it with the power of a large hitting stick. Well, you're in luck. I present to you 2002's The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, published by Black Label Games. Although released after the first New Line Cinema film premiered, the game was developed before and ostensibly with no connections at all to the film. Lord of the Rings is kinda in my blood. My dad is a diehard fan and would read the books to me when I was a very little kid, which implanted them in my subconscious. When I was old enough, I read the books myself, though they often didn't make sense to me, and religiously watched the absolutely delightful 1977 Hobbit animated film. There's not really one specific fandom I'm obsessed with. I'm sort of a dork jack of all trades, but if I had to pick one thing, it'd be The Lord of the Rings. Well, Tolkien's work in general. As I also love The Hobbit, and during COVID read and reread The Silmarillion while obsessively taking notes on it like I was writing a dissertation instead of unemployed and going insane. I reread the books pretty often these days, and they never fail to give me such a deep sense of pure joy and wonder. The movies never hit like that for me. And no, Peter Jackson never made movie adaptations of The Hobbit book. And Amazon decades later never made a TV adaptation, so don't ask me about it. Don't get me wrong, I like the movies and watch them a lot and find myself frequently quoting the "looks like mate's back on the menu" scene in situations that don't remotely call for it. They're great movies and probably the best adaptations, but how could they live up to the magical world I saw in my head as a small kid being read to? Reading the books transports me back to that feeling. The movies more just remind me of the early 2000s specifically. This year, I caught the hankering to revisit the books again, and I thought, why not play this game as I reread Fellowship? Well, there's a huge reason not to play the game, and that's because it's fucking impossible to set up. Like, this was a multi-day process to get this to run. I am not a computer person at all. I have no clue how any of this shit works. But in the end, it finally did work, and I stand on the shoulders of the socially isolated Dutch men who very nicely figured out this process and posted instructions for free to get it working, for no greater reward than passing on the threat and knowledge of how to keep a consensus mediocre at best game from dying out completely. I was especially excited about the game because it only covers the events of the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring. It just so happens that Fellowship is my favorite of the trilogy by a fairly large margin. I love how episodic it is, so many awesome little adventures and side quests happen. Plus, the beginning of a journey to me will always be more exciting than a journey's middle or end. It also feels like a lot of books in one. It starts off with a very cozy encyclopedia entry about hobbits, then a bucolic and often funny section, almost like something out of The Wind in the Willows that's undercut with very troubling moments. The book at times becomes a horror or dark fantasy novel, with the Barrow-downs and Nazgul, and especially in Moria. There's moments out of weird tales like Old Man Willow and of course The Watcher in the Water. Everything gets so much scarier and more real as Sam and Frodo realize just how deep in the shite they are. The whole book is one huge gradual tone shift, from the idyllic comfort of the Shire to the dread and darkness of Moria, but there's so much cool stuff that happens in between. I like all the books, but Fellowship is my favorite and the most special to me, which made me excited to try it while also giving it big shoes to fill in my book. In a way, this game is the last piece of media that could truly be untainted by the Jackson films, since it was developed before they were released. That alone makes it special, and makes me excited to play it, because even though the Middle-earth we get in the Jackson films is ubiquitous now, there were so many artists inspired by Tolkien's work, and a lot of diversity in how Middle-earth was depicted. I'd say that in the pre-internet age, Lord of the Rings had the largest amount of fan artists of any book series outside of the Bible, and probably the most talented, again, outside of the Bible. There's of course the work of John Howe, foggy and epic and dark, but also often richly saturated. Howe's work directly influenced the art design in the Peter Jackson films, and thus probably won out as the dominant depiction style, but there's weirder stuff too. There's the richly colored and nature-centered art of Ted Naismith that has a more traditional and medieval sensibility. The brothers Hildenbrand, whose Middle-earth had this bright, almost cartoonish look to it, with an almost 50s graphic style and was inspired by a more Knights of the Round Table, Prince Valiant chivalric vibe. I myself am partial to their 70s Aragorn with his handlebar mustache. Angus McBride's soft, texture, vibrant, almost comic booky style. This was the Middle-earth our dads grew up with. A world where anything was possible and a true visual language hadn't been established yet. Then there's weirder stuff. Tom Loback's illustrations made to look like illuminated manuscripts and jammed with Sindarin letters. Slovak artist Peter Klusik's beautifully deranged illustrations for The Hobbit. And that's just chipping at the surface. With the vast majority of later Middle-earth art being irretrievably influenced by the Jackson films, this game had an awesome opportunity to establish a new visual language for appreciating the series in video game form. I was also excited to talk about this game because video game adaptations of books are fascinating to me. We've had so many adaptations of movies into games, which are mostly bad, but adaptations of books into games are few and far between. The obvious example is the Witcher series, but outside of that, these book adaptations are usually pretty fun and weird, and it feels like developers can take way more risks. I absolutely adore fantasy games from this era and find myself gravitating towards them like a moth to a flame, even when the game is bad. Something about that early 2000s fantasy aesthetic just does something to me. The bright colors, medieval music, often cartoony graphics just brings me back to simpler days when the world wasn't threatened by recessions and pointless American wars in the Middle East, and instead by recessions and pointless American wars in the Middle East. Anyways, as you can tell, I could prattle on about this for hours. Let's get started on the game, shall we? Once you finally get the game running and can stop dangling a Looney Tunes hammer threateningly above your PC, we get a nice cutscene from Lady Galadriel explaining how things stand, a condensed version of the exposition dump that the book begins with.
In the shadows of Mordor, the Dark Lord Sauron forged the One Ring to enslave all elves, dwarves, and men of Middle-earth. The free people of Middle-earth overthrew Sauron, but lost the ring. Now the enemy has returned, and from his dark tower in Mordor, he seeks his ring. We must find the ring first and destroy it. But who can bear to carry the ring?
I love how Gollum is reacting like the game's camera is a paparazzi ambushing him in his cave. But he does look suspiciously like the movie version, no?
The powerful would become as great a threat as Sauron. But who can bear the ring?
One thing to note is I'm playing the PC version. This game was released on Game Boy Advance, PC, PS2, and Xbox. These aren't different ports. Each was developed by a different studio and has completely different art and gameplay mechanics and character designs and levels, which is bizarre.
Welcome back, Gandalf. Will we have fireworks, elvish lessons, tales of ancient Numenor?
Today, we must talk about a shadow of the past. The ring you inherited may be very dangerous.
Damn, Gandalf is looking fucking yoked, dude. He's been sprinkling Trembleone on his lembas or something. Anyways, we skip right past Bilbo's birthday bash and get straight into the exposition dump of the Shadows in the Past chapter. Things feel a bit truncated, though.
A strange creature called Gollum found the ring and was corrupted by it. Bilbo won it from Gollum, and now it is yours. But the Lord of the Rings has returned, and all his thought is bent on finding the ring.
Let's destroy it.
It can only be destroyed when it was forged, in Mount Doom, the Fire Mountain in Mordor.
In fact, there's no Bilbo at all, which is a shame, as the scene of him going sicko mode when he has to part with the ring is awesome. The reason why the central premise of the ring is original and not just a MacGuffin is because we get a tangible sense early on of just how destructive it is. When you go straight from The Hobbit to Fellowship, you get this frankly quite dark picture of how that last book's hero has been permanently damaged in this really insidious way by the same thing that brought him so much success. We do get a flash of that with Gandalf refusing the ring, but still, Frodo takes on the responsibility strangely easily in this game.
Then I must guard the ring.
And I will help you bear this burden, as long as it is yours to bear.
I'm a danger to the Shire.
I'm in danger.
I must leave. I could set out on the road just like Bilbo.
My dear Frodo.
Regardless, we get the background of Sauron, Gollum, and that Frodo needs to take the ring to Rivendell. We also do get the scene of Gandalf realizing Sam is listening and dragging him through the window, which is fun. But I do love the touch in the book that Sam is so excited and scared and overwhelmed he literally bursts into tears. Come to think of it, almost all the characters in the first book do a fair bit of crying. Anyways, 82 pages of the book are now through in a 4-minute cutscene and we're free to play. I know I'm complaining already, but I do think that a lot of the stuff they cut wouldn't really be easy to make that playable, so it's fine. Regardless, with Gandalf not showing up when he promised, Frodo decides to start the journey himself and sells Bag End to the SBs. We finally get the steering wheel. I was able to fix the game camera, but anything else resulted in the game freezing my entire computer, so I couldn't monkey around much with the settings. Speaking of monkeying around, Frodo does have a sort of simian vibe to him. I think that's because when you sneak, he just kind of shambles around like a chimp. This isn't helped by the fact that right-clicking results in him throwing a brown round object, presumably his own feces. I love the design of Bag End. In the novels, it's basically a mansion, and even if the size is relatively smaller here, it still has that incredibly snug, lived-in vibe. I love details like the giant tree trunk and roots growing through the walls, the half-timbers, the barrel-shaped roofs. It's the kind of place that you could see yourself easing into a well-loved armchair by the fireplace and losing life-ruining qualities of money on DraftKings bets on your phone while guzzling Diet Pop. Anyways, there's not much to do here but grab the deed and head to Bywater. Hobbiton is also incredibly cozy and well-designed. Man, if I was Sam, I'd be sad to leave this garden behind as well. We get to take in the bucolic vibe and chat with old friends from the book like Hal Gamgee and Grumpy Ted Sandyman. There's these weird llama-pig hybrid things that are around. Tolkien mentions pigs and cows, but never what these animals would look like in Middle-earth, so I thought it was a cool creative choice for the devs to add an imaginary fantasy livestock. We can help out by fertilizing their fields with Frodo's excrement. All in all, Hobbiton is incredibly charming. It feels like a place with nothing bad or scary in it. Well, almost nothing scary. We also get to see more of this game's wackiness when we try to climb a platform. The game says we automatically scale it, and we do, but then time breaks and we'll return to where we were a moment before. This is the forbidden platform. This issue where you can't climb up platforms couldn't possibly come up later in the game, right? Anyways, on to Bywater. The vibes here are great too, foggy and atmospheric and peaceful. God, this game really looks like classic WoW, doesn't it? Anyways, we get to experience some of Frodo's hobbit riz when he chats up a pretty young hobbitess.
Hello, Frodo.
Hello, Angelica.
We shall miss you terribly, Frodo.
Indeed.
It's so far to travel. I hope you can return to Hobbiton one day.
So do I.
Goodbye, Frodo.
Goodbye, Angelica.
We hand in the deed and key to Lobelia and get to grab a drink at the Green Dragon with Merry and Pippin after chatting with Rosie Cotton, the sheriff, and the absolute legend, the Gaffer himself. Anyways, we've now met Merry and Pippin, and my god, is Pippin fucking annoying in this game.
What brings you two scoundrels all the way to Bywater?
Breakfast, though we're up to lunch now.
Also, it's kind of funny how they clumsily throw in chapter titles into dialogue, but whatever.
Oh, too late. Our conspiracy is unmasked. May as well tell him everything now. Since you'll be walking past old Maggot's farm, we thought we'd have a go at his garden again. 3 is company, just like old times. Remember those mushrooms?
Anyways, now for the long walk back to Bag End to grab the ring and set forth on our quest.
All in black.
No, Mr. Baggins has gone away. Left this morning. No, I can't give no message. Now, good night to you.
Man, I was really liking the art direction of the game so far, but these Nazgul are pretty lame. I was accusing the movie of being very early 2000s looking, but this is the most early 2000s design you could possibly have, with all the skulls and bones and leather. They look like cut Stratholme bosses. It's a shame because the Nazgul in the book are so cool and creepy. I think in general the Jackson movie nails the Nazgul in most ways. The ones in the Bakshi film are near perfect too, besides the weird old man noises they make. Tolkien describes them in the books as moving in this disturbing, almost animal-like way, crouching and stalking and sniffing the ground. And the way they're introduced is genuinely freaky, with the scene of Frodo hiding under the road. That said, in the book, they also talk fairly legibly in full sentences, and they at least seem human enough to the hobbits to not immediately scare the foot hair off of them. So yeah, these ring wraiths are kinda lame, and the whole next part of the game is little stealth missions to sneak past them, which is surprisingly hard. A saving grace in their design is they do have this cool black luminous shadow effect that kills all the light around them, and putting on the ring while sneaking immediately alerts them to where you are, as it should. Once we get past the Nazgul, we get to fight some wolves and enjoy the game's very stick-centered combat system. Ultimately though, it's better to sneak past the wolves with the ring. I've been delaying this, but what the fuck is this? I get Frodo turns invisible, but why can we see the back of his facial features? It's so horrifying and strange. He looks like Cassandra O'Brien. It looks like somebody's wearing Frodo's flayed face skin on the back of their head. I hate it so much. It haunts me. How does this make it to the final cut? Anyways, one more annoyingly hard Nazgul encounter and we're on a Farmer Maggot's farm.
You thought you were so clever, but our conspiracy outsmarted you. We know all about the Ring and the Dark Lord, so we're going to protect you. Seems I can't trust anyone.
You can trust us to stick with you to the bitter end.
We've kept your secret better than you did.
But you can't trust us to let you face danger alone.
Even though we're horribly afraid, we're coming with you. Or following after like hounds.
We skip over Frodo's second house and Fatty Bulger, and that whole scene where all the hobbits all get butt booty naked and take hot baths together while singing sus songs, which is probably for the best.
Hey,
Frodo.
Well, looks like you got some cool bath toys in there. Is it okay if I join you?
No!
Anyways, here and in the book, I always thought Frodo forgave Farmer Maggot too quickly. Like, he was genuinely physically assaulted as a child by this scary farmer. Maybe this happens all the time in England, though. Either way, water under the bridge and onto the Great Forest. You might have noticed the game, like the movie, cuts the long scene where the hobbits meet Gildor and his party of elves and hang out with him, with the elves' songs and magic preventing the Nazgul from finding them. I get why, especially for the game, as this would just be a long cutscene and this scene might feel kind of random and long. And for the movie, there's so much to cover that hanging out and bantering with elves in the woods is pretty obvious chopping block material. But I think that scene is so important. This is when the hobbits, who live this cozy workaday conservative existence, come into contact with this ancient world that they don't really understand as it's fading away. And we as the reader don't really understand either. Unless you've read the Silmarillion, which by the way wasn't even published until 23 years after this, we don't understand these names like Elbereth and Numenor and Valinor that we constantly read. We're supposed to feel as intimidated and wrong-footed as the hobbits by this overwhelming and esoteric history. This scene where the elves are leaving and we're not even really sure why establishes this ancient and mostly unknowable world that's fading away. This scene drills home Middle-earth is a world that is rapidly and permanently changing. A world that is transitioning from this world of myth and mystery and magic into a world that's a lot more like our own. A world of industry and technology. A world of men and dwarves and hobbits and not elves and spirits. In fact, because this age of gods and elven queens and kings and tragic Wagnerian heroes and dragons is coming to an end, you could see Sauron's attempted rise and fall as the final nail in this coffin. It's his last chance. He's an ancient dark spirit from when the universe was young. Unless he conquers the world and enslaves its inhabitants, he'll become obsolete too. There's not really room for an evil demigod on a dark throne in the world that Middle-earth is becoming. Villains will look more like Saruman, crafty and greedy and, dare I say, obsessed with capital. All this mystical beauty is leaving this world, the type of beauty regaled in the almost epic poetry of the Silmarillion. And so naturally it's also the last chance for mystical evil. And the fact the world is changing is not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's bad for some, good for others, and somewhere in between for most. It's just gonna happen. It has to happen. Anyways, I completely understand why it's not in the game, but I've learned to really love the scene, and if you find it boring, I hope this could sway you a little bit. Again, I do love these type of fantasy games, especially from this era, and I always feel myself gravitating towards them in the same way I do for the horror point-and-click games I usually cover on the channel, so do let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. Also, this is probably a good time as any to ask that if you're enjoying the video, please do subscribe. It helps the channel immensely. I'm trying to hit the goal of 20k subs before the end of the summer, and I couldn't do that without you. Plus, if you don't subscribe, I'm going to tell the teacher on you, and you'll get in so much trouble. If you really like the video, you can directly support the channel through a gift on my Buy Me a Coffee page in the description. No pressure. But if you can spare it, it would truly mean so much to me. Those who have supported so far are Sugarwolf, Donut Boy 456781, Blonde Maverick, Sam, Alex GW, Daisy, Someone, Katie, Mobius, Low Resolution, and Bob and the Snugglets. Thank you all so much.
Hello? Merry? Pippin?
Oi! Frodo! We're over here.
And lost by the looks of it. These trees have a mind of their own.
Stay where you are. I'll find you.
So, you're separated from your fellow hobbits and have to get through an army of spiders to find them. This is the first taste of combat, and it's pretty bleak. There's a block that the game doesn't tell you about, but this game's combat is just hoping you've started your combo before your enemy, or you'll get smacked. There's no dodging, and the moves themselves don't feel good to pull off. I was getting a bit of a sinking feeling at this point. Maybe this game I was so excited to play is just going to be killing spiders and their relatives over and over again with wooden cutscenes in between. Anyways, from here we come to the banks of the Withywindle and more scenes cut from the movie. The Old Man Willow cutscene feels a bit like a Team Fortress 2 SFM shitpost animation.
We can't sleep yet. We must get clear of this place.
Here I come!
Anyways, for those that don't know this scene, Old Man Willow is basically an extremely ancient tree the hobbits find in the old forest that lures them to sleep in hopes of absorbing them. Tolkien makes it clear that it's not in league with Sauron or anything, it's just a really old tree that got consciousness and decided to be an asshole. It's a cool scene, but man, this fight sucks. I didn't know how to block at first, so the tree would just mollywop me and kill me in a couple combos. Once you do though, it's riveting stuff. Just block and then swing at the tree, which doesn't really feel like it does much. It feels like it lasts way too long until Tom Bombadil shows up.
Whoa! Steady there, little fellows. What's the matter then? Come now, tell me what's your trouble.
My friends are caught in that willow tree.
Old Man Willow? I know the rhyme for him. I'll chant his marrow cold if he don't behave himself. You let them out again, Old Man Willow.
Tom Bombadil is essentially just fan service for a character Tolkien made up to tell bedtime stories for his children. That might make him a good dad, but that doesn't make Tom a great character, especially this version that's basically dressed like an early 2000s pimp and loses a lot of the magic and mystery of the Tom in the book. He's fucking scary too. Look at him marching around with his eyes all wide like a mannequin. We have to get lilies for him that are guarded by spiders, but when you get enough, there's no way to talk to him. He just keeps marching around like an automaton wearing human skin. Eventually reaches an area where you can finally talk to him and progress the game. I had to do this twice though because I died without saving after the first time, and the second time around I was so sick of his shit, so I was whacking him with my stick, and I swear he broke my fucking game. I didn't get footage of it, but he did this motion with his hands and my entire screen froze on a black screen with this bubbling brook sound effect, and I couldn't minimize, so I had to restart my whole computer. When I booted back up, he had literally corrupted all my save files, so I had to start the game from the beginning. I blame this motherfucker. He tried to break my computer. He tried to kill me. He's putting bugs under my skin, and I can feel them crawling, and I just don't. Anyways, we have a lovely lunch with Goldberry and spend some time at their cozy cabin, and they talk about how awesome and cool Tom Bombadil is and how the ring doesn't work on him because he's so freaking cool, but whatever, I know your fucking secrets. Next is the Barrow-downs, probably my single favorite part of the first book for a number of reasons. As a horror and ghost story fan, I love that it's the part of the book that features both of these. I love the eerie, haunted, and ancient atmosphere, and the scenes of the hobbits sleeping under the barrows and the jewels and regalia of long-dead kings and princes, with the White's decaying arms stretching around the tomb corner. It's so chilling. The way Tolkien describes it is awesome too. Barrow-wights walked in the hollow places with the clink of rings on cold fingers and gold chains in the wind. Stone rings grinned out of the ground like broken teeth in the moonlight.
I don't like spending the night among these burial stones. They look like giant teeth coming up from the ground.
Plus, if you know the channel, you know we fucking love barrows here. The barrow area kicks off with Frodo being separated from the other hobbits overnight and having to search the barrows for them. The barrows here are dismal and gray without much character, and as you run around, these ghostly wights crawl out of the ground. A few aren't that hard to deal with, but as you get lost trying to find the right barrow, an army starts to follow you. It reminds me a lot of that one section in Dark Souls 3 outside of the Cathedral of the Deep, which is all to say I liked it. The wights above ground are faintly seen and elusive in the book, but this approach is a cool way to keep this level feeling tense. What I initially thought was a combat level becomes this chase where you have to tactfully use the ring and kite hordes of ghosts around. In the barrow, we find the enchanted sleeping bodies of Sam, Merry, and Pippin, and have to fight a wight that's been given physical form. It's very disappointing compared to the atmosphere of the barrows inside the book. We're able to jump and grab an ancient magic Numenorian sword and fight a very uninspired looking wight that just vomits on you and teleports around. Eventually it stops yakking on us long enough for us to sing the lame-ass wussy song to summon Tom Bombadil to save us.
Oh, Tom Bombadil, oh, by water, wood and hill, by the reed and the willow.
Well, little friends, old Tom has answered your call. Get out, old wight, vanish in the sunlight, shrivel like the cold mist, till the world is bended out into the...
This scene is slightly dumb in the book, and it's just as nonsensical in the game. I feel like it lasts too long. And Jesus Christ, why does he look so pissed, dude?
Old Tom shall see you safe over the borders of his land. From there you should travel to Bree, a fair village. Stay the night at the Prancing Pony Inn.
Yeah, bro, thanks for saving us, but just don't get too close. Off to Bree now, another favorite part of mine from the book that's quite quick in the movie.
I'll make arrangements with the innkeeper while you three find something to eat. And remember, from now on, my name is Mr. Underhill.
Right. Come on, Sam, Pippin. Goodbye, Mr. Underhill.
We check into the Prancing Pony, and man, I love the design here. It's so cozy and surprisingly large. I love areas like the sitting room with the fireplace and some of the guest rooms. It feels like a mix of the architecture of a hobbit hole and an above-ground house of man, which is perfect for Bree being the sort of half-hobbit, half-man frontier town. That's sort of the last holdout of the more quotidian, more modern world before we enter a more magical world of kings, sorcerers, and villains. I also like how the art in the inn is clearly just images of actual medieval art, seemingly Christian art from what I can tell. If you're not able to make existing art for the game, I really like the practice of using existing art. It gives Middle-earth a unique, more grounded, more Earth-like vibe, a world where depictions of the human figure are less sophisticated and more medieval, maybe a world where important figures are depicted like saints and angels are in our own world. In the inn's dining room, we get to chat with the other travelers, including who I think is Bill Ferny and Strider himself.
Good evening to you.
Pleased to meet you. My name is Underhill.
Is this your first time in an inn, Mr. Underhill?
No, that is to say, it's my first time in this inn.
I see. Well, if you're planning on staying here, you should check with the innkeep. Wait too long and you'll be sleeping in the stables.
Right. Thank you for the advice.
I'm not sure about Strider's design. He has this almost evil-looking gothy vibe to him, which like Strider was supposed to look kind of scary, but more in a grizzled, stinky, homeless kind of way, not Lucius Malfoy after a round of Just for Men black box dye. And one thing I love from the book is just how much the hobbits, and especially Sam, distrusted Strider. If you didn't know the rest of the plot at that point, you would just as easily assume Strider's a villain. Here, they just kind of trust him almost immediately, which is less fun. Also, the scene where Frodo puts on the ring in front of the inn guests is so fucking weird and unintentionally funny.
People of Bree, thank you for your gracious reception.
Let's have a song.
Wait, I'm getting to the good part. Very well then. A song. There is an inn, a merry old inn, beneath an old grey hill. And there they make a stew so brown that the man in the moon himself flew down at night to eat his fill.
Where did he go? Sorcery!
Bah. Conjurer's trick, that's all.
Right, and a fine trick it was.
Anyways, after Gandalf's letter giving Strider the all-clear is discovered, the hobbits notice Merry is missing and send Strider to find him. The streets of Bree are pretty cool and atmospheric with a good bit of detail. They have this eerie, deserted feeling, and remind me of a level intro from the first Thief game. While looking for Merry though, Strider gets confronted by Bill Ferny and just, fucking kills him, and leaves his lifeless body in the street, like a dust-up between two opposing fans after a Polish soccer match. I get Aragorn was attacked first, but seeing him murder other humans is a bit stark. He later also kills the Bree gatekeeper, who in the book is just a normal guy who gets a bit misguided. But then again, he has this really annoying spear attack that I died to where you still take damage standing behind him, so I guess he deserves it. Anyways, after finding Merry, our next task is to make hobbit dummies to fool the Nazgul while killing more people and leaving their corpses in the town square. With the dummies assembled, the burgeoning fellowship hightails it and the Nazgul stab the hobbit dummies. This is a cool scene in the movie, but here it might actually be better. Well, not better, but definitely freakier. The Nazgul just fucking shrieking over and over again is genuinely disturbing. Onto Weathertop. This is a cool part in the book and is certainly the prettiest location in the game. The vibes are great. The lighting is this really pretty yellow fading sunlight with lots of shadow, and the skybox with the orange sunsetty cloud and stars is gorgeous. There's sparse pine trees and standing stones stretching into the distance. Man, standing stones are cool. Some charming and handsome YouTubers should really make a video essay about them. Playing as Aragorn feels a lot better than Frodo, but combat still isn't actually developed. Aragorn's sword swings are certainly more satisfying, and instead of right-clicking being a turd throw, Aragorn shoots arrows. If you use the first-person option, you can actually get these pretty accurate. He also has this kick move to knock enemies down and then finish them off on the ground. It's not exactly Dark Messiah, but it's fun to pull off and miles better from the Hobbit's more stick-focused spider combat. Here, with very little fanfare, we get our first introduction to orcs. In the book, these don't really show up until Moria, but hey, I'm fine with breaking continuity if it means less fights with spiders and wolves. The orcs are passable, but very generic. Like, yeah, this looks like an orc. The only unique thing is this green glow they have from their eyes, suggesting their ability to see in the dark. It makes me think of the cat-eyed goblins in the Hobbit animated film, but it wasn't executed in a particularly effective way here. Instead of glowing eyes, they kind of just look like they're wearing Mountain Dew branded eyeshadow. At the summit of Weathertop, we get a not particularly fun boss fight with the troll, and then find the Nazguls hard on our trail. We get the Nazgul ambush scene in a non-gameplay cutscene, which honestly does a pretty good job of showing how powerless Frodo is to slip on the ring in front of Sauron's servants. It's almost like a recovering alcoholic being suddenly around a bunch of liquor. You can resist it and think of other things most of the time, but when you're around the signifiers of your addiction, your willpower basically all fades away. The ring is basically the same and is just as destructive. In fact, Gollum and older Bilbo are pretty decent examples of the development and toll of addiction. Anyways, what isn't subtle or interesting is the next scene where Aragorn fights off the Nazgul with a torch. like me fending off my friends with a rolled up magazine from the last bag of nerd gummy clusters after a night of drinking. It's lame too because up close we can see how uninteresting the Nazgul look. They're just guys in black clothes. There's none of the subhuman, animal-like qualities in their poses or actions that's so compelling and unsettling in the book. Anyways, after that, more troll and orc fighting. Nothing interesting to say besides when me and a troll did the meme thing and both killed each other at the same time. There's not the moment where we see the ossified remains of the trolls from The Hobbit, which is such lost potential. I mean, they could have just showed it for a second like they do in the movies. Regardless, we meet Glorfindel, who takes us the rest of the way to Rivendell, and it's insane how much less expressive his model is in the cutscene than the Hobbits. He's just yapping at us like an animatronic. Also, if you've read the Silmarillion, you know that Glorfindel is basically a superhero, so this haunted department store mannequin feels like a disservice. Anyways, the flight to the Ford cutscene is another one of these non-gameplay cutscenes, which it's becoming increasingly clear that these were not made with the same team that designed the rest of the game, as the characters look completely freaking different. It looks fine though, but for some reason the way Frodo's hair is designed in these really pisses me off. I'm not sure why. I do love that they include the part where Frodo is feeling like a tough guy once he's safely across the river, and the Nazgul leader just fucking snaps his sword with his mind just to be an asshole and to show how fucked Frodo would be if they were face to face. Anyways, we're safe in Rivendell now.
Gandalf.
Yes, I am here.
Yes, I am.
And you are lucky to be anywhere after all the absurd things you've done.
We get a very, very abridged recap of Saruman turning evil and imprisoning Gandalf.
I was held captive by the treachery of Saruman the White, the chief of the wizards, but now I am free.
This is a shame because this honestly could have been a fun section to play through as Gandalf if they added some combat or puzzle sections. We also get a very abridged version of the Council of Elrond, which might be a blessing for those of you who had to slog through it. Gimli is fucking jacked, Legolas looks suspiciously like Orlando Bloom in the movie, and Boromir looks absolutely nothing like how I imagined him. I always imagined Boromir as more youthful, but I looked it up and I guess he was supposed to be 41 when this happened, though maybe his Númenórean blood would keep him more fresh-faced. It's a nitpick regardless, but I do wish we heard more of his character during the council scene. More on that later though.
Destroy it? You would deliver our greatest weapon right to the doorstep of our enemy?
We cannot use it. It corrupts all who bear it. The more powerful the bearer, the more dangerous they will become. I fear to take the ring to hide it. I will not take the ring to wield it.
A dark riddle. Those powerful enough to enter Mordor dare not touch the ring.
Powerful enough to enter Mordor? All the armies of Middle-earth joined together could not enter Mordor.
A small force with stealth may succeed where a large army would fail.
All in all, I feel like despite my complaints, this game has been very pretty so far for 2002, so I was really excited for Rivendell, for the developers to show off a bit, but this is all kind of boring looking. Don't get me wrong, it looks nice, but I wanted more detail as Rivendell as a location always captured my imagination. Anyways, I also noticed that Bilbo isn't here, but at least that tracks with him not being in the beginning of
Hello, Bilbo. It looks like we'll be going soon.
Wait, he is here?
There you are, Frodo, my lad. I've some gifts for use on the road ahead.
Huh. Anyways, we get a very watered down and oddly apathetic scene of Bilbo giving us his gamer gear and wishing us well. However, this scene doesn't show at all Bilbo's fading after parting with the ring, or the really cool scene of him getting all nasty and Gollum-like when he sees it. Which is a shame, as this again drills home just how corruptive the ring is and just how important the Fellowship's mission is. I'd honestly rather not have a scene with Bilbo at all if the game is not going to acknowledge the tragic side of his character since coming to Rivendell. Anyways, onward to the mountains of Moria. Now we're in Holland, near the gates of Moria, and get to play as Gandalf. He's honestly pretty fun. He has a sword combo and then a number of spells. The one I found being the most useful is this chain lightning one. There's a spell that's supposed to turn your enemies against whatever enemy gets caught in it, sort of like a command or turn enemy spell. That said, the animation was so long it was really hard to pull off, and the few times I did, I wasn't sure if it even did anything. Holland is very nice looking, if a bit minimalistic. I especially like the vibes of the Moria Gate and the reflective lake. Fight a mix of orcs, trolls, and rat-tailed wargs to the gate, and we get the speak, friend, and enter scene. Though this time the lake monster attacks while Gandalf is trying to figure out the puzzle.
If you are a friend, speak the password to open the doors.
Do you know the word, Gandalf?
If I am allowed a bit of peace, I shall seek for a word.
Instead of dragging us into Moria, we have to fight the monster as Aragorn while Gandalf solves the riddle. I had no clue what to do, but after wasting a lot of time, I realized you have to use the first-person view to shoot arrows at the different parts of the Watcher, which looks kind of boring, which sucks because they could have done something really cool design-wise here.
Let us rest while we can.
How long will it take to get through this place?
I cannot say for certain. 3 or 4 days' march, providing we don't get lost or run into trouble.
Trouble? What kind of trouble?
Orc trouble.
Moria is vast and deep. With luck, we can avoid all the orcs.
Our luck seems to be running sour of late. Perhaps you would have preferred to remain behind with that thing in the lake?
Not me, Mr. Gimli. Not that thing or those wolves. I'll take my chances in here.
I absolutely love Moria in the books. It has this really eerie and ghostly vibe. When the Fellowship hear noises, it's not clear if it's orcs or the ghosts of dead dwarves. Plus, finding Balin's grave and journal has that cool expedition gone wrong logbook feel we've seen in countless horror games. In the game, it does feel like this mysterious, almost alien monolithic city carved into the rock. The scale is awesome. I also liked real-world details like the giant Greek jugs as decoration and the use of Roman stone reliefs as art assets. It makes it feel like we're in a place that has its own ancient cut-off history, stretching long before the events of the Fellowship. Conflating ancient dwarves with ancient cultures like Rome and Greece was something I've never seen before. Moria in the films always felt kind of blank and cold, so I like the more stylized depiction here that would honestly befit the vast wealth of the dwarves who built it. Even if the designs do get a bit generic at times, like wall art that's just tribal tattoos your cool cousin would get back in 2009. Anyways, this zone felt the most like a WoW dungeon. Moria is basically just an extended combat section as Gandalf, and though it's long, it never really got boring. The gameplay parts of Moria is just you and Gimli cutting through modest patrols of orcs. This is our first time playing alongside Gimli, so it makes sense he's the companion, but why not have the whole Fellowship fighting with you? It's not just animation limitations, later we see them all fighting, although then you don't get to savor the battle and get a way too simple puzzle to do instead. Fighting through Moria with the whole roster would be fucking awesome. All they'd have to do is just throw in way more orcs and it would actually feel like a raid. What is funny is when you and Gimli get to a bonfire, the whole Fellowship spawns in. Were they in Gandalf's wizard sleeve the whole time or something? The funny thing is there could still be a ton of orcs running around, but if you go in the room and trigger the cutscene, the characters will legit be like, thank God there's no more orcs. Then the cutscene ends and there's still a bunch of the orcs you were just fighting running around. Anyways, lots more orc fighting and exploring in Moria. There's even a cutscene with a little Gollum teaser.
Not certain, but I think something is following us. Quietly. In the dark.
When we find Balin's grave, the perspective switches back to Frodo for a bit and we get more puzzle sections and get to play with the ring more. During this, Gimli is protecting us, but he seems to have an infinite health bar, so we can just watch him getting the Arkenstones kicked out of him by hordes of orcs like we're enjoying a high fantasy world star video. Before long, Gandalf gets a showdown with a Balrog, which seems oddly small to me.
Durin's bane has come! To arms! Gondor!
Go! Across the bridge of Khazad-dûm. This is a foe beyond any of you. I must face the Balrog alone. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass!
I always envisioned it as a bit smaller than the movie one, but still fairly huge. Not just the height of an NBA center wearing moon shoes. Regardless, this fight fucking sucks. You just stun the Balrog with a spell, and then whack him a few times, and then beat a cowardly retreat to safety and repeat. But if he hits you up close, you get one-shotted, and sometimes the animation glitches and he doesn't actually get stunned. So a lame fight for a very cool moment in the books. What's funny too is you can run all the way to the end of the bridge and the whole Fellowship is just standing there in single file, silently watching you get one-shotted over and over again. Get out some of your resentment by letting the Balrog torch them once or twice. Anyways, after a few rounds of whacking, the Balrog dies. We get the pre-rendered Fly You Fools cutscene, and I'm sorry, but who the fuck is that guy? Like, it's increasingly clear that the regular art team and the cutscene team weren't communicating, but this is the last straw. Were they designed at completely different times? Were they even located in the same country? Did they send in a single email to each other? They weren't even trying to make things consistent. This Aragorn looks like the male model on the cover of a pirate-themed romance novel your mom would read on a cruise. Whatever, dude, I just want to be done. Anyways, we get straight to Lorien, which honestly does look pretty nice, but a lot darker than what I'd envisioned. I'd love to explore here a bit more, but as soon as you leave Celeborn and Galadriel's throne room, you get railroaded into the Galadriel mirror scene.
Here is the mirror of Galadriel. I have brought you here to look in it, if you will.
What will we see?
Things you desire to see, and things unbidden. Things that were, are, and may yet be.
I'll have a peek. There's only stars. Wait, what? It's Ted Sandyman cutting down all our trees. I'll cut him down.
Do you wish to look now, Frodo?
This is a really cool moment, and despite being abridged, it's really faithful here, and a lot of the lines are directly taken from the book. Although Galadriel's character's animation, or lack thereof, kind of strips it of all the oomph it has.
I would give you the ring if you ask for it.
You would give me the ring freely? In place of the Dark Lord, you would set up a queen, and I shall not be dark, but beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night. All shall love me and despair. No, I passed the test. I will diminish and go into the west, and remain Galadriel.
Anyways, no gifts from the elves where Gimli gets gamer girl bathwater. I mean, beautiful Lady Galadriel's beautiful locks of hair, and no boat scene. The long boat ride is frankly a fairly boring part of the book, but it actually has potential to be really cool in a game. There's lots of things you could do. A sailing mechanic, maybe naval battles with other orcs, or trying to keep Gollum away from the boat as he slinks along the river. But no, nothing. When we get to the banks of Anduin, we get dropped into this kind of clunky scene with Boromir. Boromir finally turning is one of my favorite parts of the book, so I was waiting with bated breath for Boromir to finally succumb to the ring's power and attack poor Frodo, but that's not what this is.
I do not doubt the valor of Gondor, but what if it is not enough?
There is still hope that Gondor will not fall.
There is no hope while the ring exists.
Yes, the ring. We can use its power for good.
All that is done with the ring turns to evil. All can be corrupted. Some faster than others.
I mean, it's a little tense, but it just feels like Boromir giving Frodo his opinion and kind of guilt-tripping him. Which is a shame, because to me, Boromir is the most interesting character in the first book, maybe in the series. We're surrounded by these people who are just awesome and virtuous in every way and always seem to make the right decisions. Perfect people like Aragorn and Gandalf and kinda even Frodo. But Boromir is just a guy. He tries to come across as heroic, but he's basically just a soldier. He doesn't know how to act at the court in Lorien or in Rivendell, and he ends up putting his foot in his mouth and embarrassing himself. He's traumatized by war and sees a way to end all his people's trouble for good. He doesn't get to take in the country air on long strolls in the Shire, or gorge himself in Rivendell, or hang out in trees singing elven songs. His homeland's a war zone now. How could you listen to all these people who live these seemingly easy, charmed lives and not think they were wrong and you were right? I know people have problems with Boromir's depiction of the Peter Jackson movies. I frankly don't, but they still don't do him justice. Because he really is a good guy. He's just not perfect. And seeing the ring corrupt and rendered near mad, a good, virtuous, strong person like Boromir not only shows us for the final time how powerful it is, but also finally steals Frodo's resolve that something this dangerous shouldn't exist. So yeah, this game doesn't give Boromir even a whiff of that depth. And they make him ugly. We can all agree that Boromir canonically in the Tolkien universe is super hot, right? Anyways, the sunset effect in the next area is nice, but it's just killing more orcs. Well, now we're actually fighting Uruk-hai. Saruman's special shock troops aren't given much fanfare and are just as easy to kill as the rest of the orcs, though they do seem to have really well moisturized hair. Anyways, when the orc slaying is done, we get, from what I can tell, the only invented scene in the game in which the Nazgul king on his fell beast mount kidnaps Sam. What follows is probably the longest continuous segment in the game, an extended battle through Amon Hen, where we switch perspective between Frodo and Aragorn. When we reach the top, we have our final battle with the Witch King, and it's about as epic and well designed as the rest of the bosses in the game. Following the extremely cheesable melee fight on the ground, the fell beast takes to the air. What follows is an extremely annoying section where you kind of just aimlessly shoot arrows where you think the fell beast will be in the hopes that one or two will connect. After wasting a lot of time, we finally slay the beast and reach the game's ending.
The Fellowship of the Ring has triumphed. They have brought low the flying ring wraith. They have taken Frodo in safety to the very edge of Mordor. So the Fellowship has succeeded. Yet I see the ring-bearer alone as he crosses into the Dark Land. Yet, not all alone.
Anyways, that's it. The Fellowship doesn't break up or anything. Our only payoff is Galadriel looking at incredibly pixelated images in her well and hinting about Gollum. The game's ending is certainly lacking payoff. Almost everything falls apart by the end of the first book, which makes the next one have much higher stakes. How would this ending generate interest for the next game? Psych, the next game was never made, and that's probably for the best. I certainly doubt that each game would get more and more well-funded and designed as time went on. Before anything else, I want to address the elephant in the room. Now, I'm not positive, but remember when I said this is the last piece of LOTR media that could be truly untainted by Peter Jackson's films? I'm not so confident anymore. There are so many visual similarities here that could be coincidence, but just make me wonder, like Gollum. Gollum isn't described in a super specific way, which is reflected in art of him looking very different from artist to artist, but the book emphasizes how dark and frog-like he is. This pale, more simian Gollum looks so much like the movie one played by Andy Serkis. And Legolas. I know it's just an elf wearing green with platinum blonde, but he looks so much like Orlando Bloom's Legolas to me. Legolas isn't described with blonde hair. In fact, intuitively, a wood elf like him would have had dark hair. Yeah, his dad Thranduil is described as having golden hair, but are the developers doing that much research? Maybe I'm being crazy, but if the game, after all, did still end up fighting the visual style of the movie from like promotional materials or something, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Appraising the game is hard. Well, it's not hard to determine, but it's hard to say. I generally like liking things. I hope fans of my stuff know I don't like being negative, and I generally fight to say nice things when I can. But this is not a good game. Maybe it's not a bad game, but it's closer to being a bad game than it is to being a good game. 2002 is a very long time ago, so I'm trying to have grace. But the combat isn't very compelling, the cutscenes feel cobbled together, and I would argue the storytelling is very flawed. And I don't think it's because they tried to make the game more loyal to the original story. Well, honestly, I don't think it was that loyal to the story, but reviewers at the time thought so, and certainly the vast majority of major events in the first book are here. Peter Jackson cut a lot to make the story into a more compelling movie, and it almost feels like the game is trying to force the arbitrary duty of including all the scenes from the book, but also not taking the time to make them interesting or fun. That said, I still did have fun in the game. Besides when my game crashed or my files got corrupted, I was never truly miserable during my playthrough. I think that's largely because the in-world atmosphere genuinely is quite charming and powerful. Many of the levels and areas, especially the interior ones, are really cute and do give that 2000s fantasy endorphin rush. I think that's the greatest strength of the game, the design of the world and the music. Sure, they might not work as actual video game levels when it comes to gameplay, but they were a joy to inhabit. It might just be because this game offered me a chance to actually walk around the places I've been walking around in my imagination since I was a kid, but I do think they knew what they were doing in this regard. I actually wish the levels were longer, and I had more of a chance to really walk around and sniff the flowers before being dragged into the next cutscene. I don't care about having to play a not great game, or even a bad game. That doesn't faze me. I played bad games all the time. If I ever saw written out in front of me the hours I spend playing horrible scam mobile games I downloaded off Instagram ads, I'd probably throw my phone onto train tracks. But I was just so disappointed knowing how cool they could have made this, but they still bungled it. It was the chance to establish a new visual language for how Lord of the Rings would look, completely divorced from the movie, one that could have been extremely successful artistically and commercially. But it looks horribly generic, much more so than the movie. In fact, even my praise for the environments might be because of how generic they look in a way, because they do evoke similar fantasy games that feel basically the exact same way throughout my childhood. They could have done something weird and unique and crazy, even if it failed. Instead, we got dead-eyed Frodo doing a jig on the table. There's no doubt the movies, regardless of how I feel about them, are much better adaptations than this. In fact, this doesn't even feel like a video game adaptation of the book. It feels like a video game tie-in to a movie that doesn't exist. Shovelware to market a film that was never made. It's depressing, man. Because despite how popular the Peter Jackson films are, there are still opportunities to adapt the series with a fresh spin that isn't just regurgitating what we've seen before. That said, that's exactly what's at risk of happening, with yet another Lord of the Rings adaptation also helmed by Jackson. Middle-earth might be more trapped and stagnant than ever, but, not to be corny, no matter how many good Middle-earth games or bad Middle-earth games there are, even if there are 20 more Peter Jackson movies before the sun explodes and more horrible TV adaptations made by evil corporations, even if diehard fans of the books continue to try to get people who like the movies to finally read the novels and continue to fail because those people don't have the attention span to get through nice descriptions of trees, we will always have the books, shining like beacons in the darkness, like Elbereth Chthoniel in the night sky. Colossal works of imagination and beauty and atmosphere and depth, written by a man who lost both parents before he turned 13, who was dragged through the horror and the bloodshed of the Somme, but came out the other end still believing that beauty and love and goodness were worth fighting for. No future bastardization of the series can ever actually pollute the worlds I, and maybe you too, dear viewer, found on the written page when we were small, where I can find joy and peace when my own world feels darker and more scoured each year. So yeah, it was not a good game. It was a missed opportunity, but it was fun, and it gave me another reason to reread Fellowship. And I clearly haven't learned my lesson, because now I want to play and cover that Hobbit game from 2003, albeit it seems like people actually did like that one. Anyways, thanks for bearing with me. That's all for today. Thank you so much for your time, dear viewer. I wish you all the good fortune in the world. I remain your faithful snuggler.